Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Chiara, and in today's video I thought I would tell you about having Botox in my leg. So a couple weeks ago I went and had Botox in my arm and my leg, but I've done quite a lot of videos on my arm, so I thought today I would talk about having Botox in my leg because I've only had Botox in my leg maybe like 3 times in my life. So this was the 3rd time, so I thought I would tell you a little bit about how that went and like how I think my leg is now as to how it was before I had the Botox. So, if you don't know, when I was 2 and 10 months, I suffered a stroke resulting in right side hemiplegia, and I will link a full video about my disability here and down below if you want to go watch it. And if you like these kind of videos and you want to learn more about my disability and learn more about how I do one-handed tasks, and you might want to see more of me, please consider subscribing. The subscribe button will be below. Now let me tell you a little bit about having Botox in my leg. So, like I said, I had Botox in my leg and my arm, and I've done several videos on Botox in my arm, and I'll link them up here if you want to watch them just in case. But I had the same injections I always have in my arm, so they did them here, and here it was to open my hand, so now my hand's open like this, because I had Botox maybe a month ago, probably when you're going to watch this. Yeah, probably by the time I've edited this and everything, it will probably be like a month. The muscles they injected in my leg they did 3 in my leg and 1 in my toe. So overall I had 4 injections in my leg and my toe. So the 2 they did they did 2 in my leg in the calf muscle here in the back, and they didn't really hurt that much because obviously it's quite there's not a lot of bone there because it's in your calf muscle, so it was around here. And then they did 1 in my shin, and that hurt so bad because obviously they had to go through the shin bone to get to the muscle, so that really hurt. And then, because that's just a really sensitive area, if you've ever hit your shins, you'll know. And then I had 1 in my toe, and it was the big toe, so the toe next to the big toe, they put 1 in there. And the idea for that is because my toe next to my big toe crosses over, so it basically goes on top of my big toe, and I'll insert a picture so you guys can see. And the idea was to try and separate it. They were trying to make my toes not cross, not because my toes are crossed, they were trying to correct that. And also, with the ones in my leg, they were trying to make my foot be straighter and maybe flatter, I'm not too sure, but definitely straighter, because if you've ever watched me walk, if you've watched any of my videos where I walk, my foot tends to turn in, and obviously then my left foot, I trip over it, which is a worry, but it becomes a trip hazard. So they were trying to make my foot straighter so I wouldn't trip over my right foot. I had to think that over my right foot. So they did that. So those were the muscles they injected, and I think it has worked. At first, I didn't think it worked at all, because the first day, I'll insert a picture of how it looked after the first day, I'll insert that here. And the first day I was tripping over, so maybe the first 24 hours, I kept tripping over my foot, which obviously defeated the purpose of having a Botox, because the idea was to straighten the foot out, and it was turning in and I kept tripping over it, so that wasn't the best, and I found it really hard to walk. I think it was just because my muscles had been made looser, it was harder for me to walk because I wasn't used to it. But as the week has gone on and everything, I feel I definitely feel my walking has improved, and I definitely feel my foot is straighter and also flatter, because in the past my foot hasn't been flat. It tends to curve up and then it won't go flat, and then I have trouble walking, and it hurts my toes. So I think overall it has been good in that sense that my foot's definitely straighter and flatter, and I'm walking a lot better, and I haven't tripped over since the first 24 hours. I haven't tripped over, so that's good. My toe, I don't think it's worked as well, because the toe next to my big toe is still crossed over, and also I'm having a lot of because when I walk I put a lot of pressure on my big toe, because the toe on top of my big toe adds pressure onto my big toe, which then causes like this is gonna sound really gross, but really hard skin under my foot, and it makes it hard for me to walk. So I think that really hasn't done much with that. It's not as separated as much as it had before, because I previously had Botox in my toe maybe like 6 months ago for the first time. When I went last time for my Botox, so not this time, the time before, because I have Botox like every 6 to 8 months, which I'm very lucky to have that. They tried to put some in the toe to see if they could correct it. Maybe this time they didn't put enough, or they didn't hit the right muscle, I don't know why, but last time it was super flat, and I'll insert a picture of it from the last time I had it, and I'll put the date. And it was super flat, and it did help me to walk, but I don't know why this time this time it just didn't work, and that sometimes happens with Botox. You can't really predict it, but right now it's not working. It's probably been about a month, but I don't know, it may like in time start to work, but I don't think this time it worked as well as it did last time. So I insert a picture of it now, and how it was the first time I had it. So this is the second time me having Botox in my toe. Last time they only did the toe and the arm. This time they did the arm and the leg and the toe. And then when I was maybe like 16? No, I wasn't 16. Maybe like, actually no, when I was, actually I know, I've had Botox in my leg 4 times. Because my first Botox doctor I had, so the first one I ever had when I was 11, because I've been having this for a long time, he didn't want to do it in my leg. Then the second one I had, because he retired, he was like, yeah, we can do the leg. So he did the leg. I think he did it once, because I grew out of paediatric services because I became an adult. And then I went into adult services in the NHS. And so then once I did that, I think another doctor said, yes, we'll do the leg. So he did the leg, and he did it once. And then my new doctors here, they didn't do the leg, they only did the arm. And then they've started doing the leg now. Well, they started doing the toe, and then they did the leg. The reason why they did the toe was because they're talking about in your toes, and if you're squeamish, I would probably turn it off. Or I'll put a timestamp. They want to maybe like cut a tendon, because my toes are permanently crossed. They want to cut a tendon to like help me walk, and also it will make it flat, and also there won't be as much pain on my big toe when I walk. So they're talking about getting someone else to cut a tendon in my toe next to my big toe. So then it will sit like, I guess like how my left foot would sit. But they wanted to try Botox first to see if it would work before they cut the tendon, because obviously that's quite like a drastic thing, cutting tendons, because if it didn't work then you can't really go back. Whether Botox, you can try it and it wears off, so that's why they did that. So the first time it did work, the second time it didn't work. It may be because they didn't put enough, they didn't hit the right muscle. There's so many reasons as to why Botox doesn't work. But most of the time Botox does work for me. So another way they want to try and separate my toes is through toe separators. So I've got a few different ones, and I haven't actually used them yet. Well, I tried to use them, but they kept falling off. So I think what I'm going to do is get like sports tape, you know, like tape that you can wrap around. So then hopefully they might stay. What we might try, but yeah, it's about making my toe next to my big toe, which I don't know what that's called, flat and not be on top of my big toe, because that's ultimately causes me problems with walking. As you can imagine, if your toe on top of your toe next to your big toe was constantly crossed, it makes it harder to walk. That's my video on having Botox in my leg. If you did enjoy, please like and comment. And if you want to learn more about my disability and learn more about how I do one-handed tasks, and you might want to see more of me, please consider subscribing. The subscribe button will be below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!